Welcome to another episode of Keys to Success with myself, Gypsea. That's the biggest challenge, overcoming fear and actually going past the fear. On today's episode of Keys to Success, I'm so humbled to be here with one of Gold Coast's top architects, changing the face of Gold Coast architecture. Welcome to the podcast, Jayson Pate.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We're just chatting off camera about how the face of the Gold Coast has changed so much and people don't want those big McMansions, as you call them, anymore. How do you, I guess I just want to dive straight into it. Like, how have you navigated the property market since you've started obviously leveling up in your architecture space and how it's changed so much over the years?
Yeah, I think design's come a long way on the Gold Coast. I think we had a really bad reputation for some pretty awkward and ugly architecture for a long time. And it probably dates back to the sort of 80s, 90s when the Gold Coast was transitioning from a surf town to probably the city it is. And I guess a lot of people were building the spec homes of the day. So we were talking earlier about, places like Mermaid Waters, Mermaid Beach, Broad Beach Waters. All of these places have these brick and tile homes that are now 40 or 50 years old that really become blocks of land. So many people now are buying those, seeing opportunity to knock down and rebuild, but choosing to build nice homes that will last rather than something that was probably only for a time.
Yeah, it's so true how much it's changed and just the square boxes, and then now you're seeing, your designs come into the space and other architectures, and it's changed so much. It's completely different. What do you use for your inspiration when you're getting these designs, and how have you navigated, I guess, the transformation from the McMansion brick and tile to the designs that you have now?
I think it's just functionality. It's finding the perfect function for a block. It's obviously the ideal. So every new client and every new project is pretty much starting at the same point of what's the perfect orientation and aspect for the home, how do we create the best function for the family that it's being designed for, whether that's for a principal place of residence or even an investment, whether it's a flip or just a long-term goal to sell for good money. I think determining what your brief should be and what's going to meet the market that you want to is a huge part of how it's designed, and then budget is another huge one that no doubt we'll talk a lot about. Just finding the right numbers, especially when it comes to a flip or a resale, so that you're not overspending or actually underspending at times as well.
When you're talking about functionality just then, how do you see the property market changing with sustainability, and how have you incorporated that into some of your work?
Sustainability is a big thing on a lot of people's minds these days. The biggest balance point at the moment is a lot of the sustainabilities are coming at a high price. So balancing that up with a really high cost of construction at the moment is quite difficult. We have had 7-star energy ratings just come into play for all new homes, and that's across Australia. So that will start to push some sustainability sort of codes, I guess, onto people, whether they like it or not. I think we'll see a lot more double glazing happening regardless. And we've seen bulk insulation and a few other sort of items really kind of, or the spotlight be on them in the last few years. So I think whether we like it or not, sustainability is here to stay, and I think will become more stringent as we go.
And you think that the government are going to do more to help people implement that into their homes? Because obviously if the cost is so high, there's no incentive for anyone to do it. So
I hope they do.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, there was rebates for water tanks and solar panels and those sort of things. It's only a real drop in the ocean in comparison to even some of these 7-star ratings. It'd be nice to know that they would do more, but I think we're at a real kind of, I think we're skating thin ice at the moment with the rise of construction costs on the back of COVID versus actually trying to do the right thing by the environment. It's none of it comes cheap, and a lot of people are struggling to even build a home or buy a home, let alone build a home to a particular level. So I think, as much as we say we hope the government could do more, I don't think it's just as simple as creating a new rule.
Yeah, I would hope it would be that simple, but I'm clearly not a politician.
Yes.
And when you talk about the building costs, that's obviously a hot topic for everybody. And, for us, especially as real estate agents, when we're selling, like I sell a lot of waterfront properties. So they've got to factor in the build costs, and then are they even going to see the return on investment after they actually build a home there? What's the biggest thing that's been driving the prices that you've noticed from your end in terms of the build costs?
Well, I think COVID was a huge factor. Obviously, material costs went through the roof. But then as material costs have, cost of living has, which has essentially pushed all trades to up their labour content. So not only materials are going up, but the labour content went up a lot as well. And that was just with that rising inflation and cost of living. Everyone was just taking their little piece of the pie to essentially help them live a good life, which has just seen everything rise to the sort of point it is now. Do I see it coming back? Not really. I think this is the new norm. We're sort of, we have clients roll through the office often who are saying, should I wait another 6 months before I start a build? Would that help with construction costs? And unfortunately, I don't think the answer is a smart move to wait. I think, I don't think costs are coming back. I do believe that if anything, they'll continue to rise slowly over time.
That's such a good point. And I mean, we see that with the buyers that are sitting and waiting, and they think, oh, do we wait another 6 months or wait 12 months to buy? And it's just kept going up. Yeah. And we were talking about this before off camera, like, I don't even know when we're going to get to the peak because it's just going to keep growing.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, we've just had one of the most marvellous weekends on the Gold Coast weather-wise. We spoke of the air show on, how much tourism it brings to the coast. I'm sitting here in shorts and a T-shirt in the middle of winter.
Yeah.
Our population growth, there's a reason behind it. It's because we've got the best of everything here. We're no longer the surfside city that I spoke of. We're now essentially a capital without being a capital. We have everything here that we need. I see COVID as a bit of a factor in allowing people to work remotely that I think has also had a benefit for the coast. For a number of years, I believe there wasn't huge wages to be made on the coast. Obviously, people doing well in business might have been able to make really good money and afford really nice homes. I think these days, a lot more, say, CEOs or GMs or whatever you might be are actually working for, say, interstate companies or national companies, but being able to do it from the coast with that level of remote work, plus being able to fly down to whether it's a Sydney or a Melbourne, almost on a day trip if need be. But they're bringing those big wages to house at the coast rather than having a holiday unit. So I think people moving up and having the ability to take those jobs on while living here, I think has just pushed our property prices up too.
So true. The way that we live now is, having your home is so important. And I think that's a good topic to kind of move into, is the way that people are building in wellness into their properties, and they're not just building a home, they're building somewhere that they can, recover and train and relax. How do you see that fitting into the new architecture space?
It's huge for sort of people's briefs at the moment. It's once upon a time, say early 2000s, the hot topic was, say, a media room or what have we sort of, a media room. Then it's probably slowly transitioned into, say, multiple living spaces. Then we probably started to get a few gyms rolling through. Now a gym's just not enough. In these big sort of, prestigious homes, the gym now has saunas and cold plunges and golf simulators are right back on people's lists now.
Really?
Yeah, so we're really seeing homes of a really high calibre start to implement things that are day-to-day for people now, where they want to hit a bucket of balls at home, whether they want to train or do an ice bath every morning. People are starting to implement these into homes, and they're the homes that are selling the best, which is also a good indicator that it's what people are wanting, whether building for themselves or searching on the market.
For sure. And I think that whole wellness space is such a big part of the Gold Coast lifestyle.
It is.
So people value it. They want it in their home. They want it to be easily accessible. I guess I kind of jumped straight into the architect questions because it's what I want to know from you. But tell the listeners about you and your story. How did Jayson Pate start?
Yeah, well, Jayson Pate Design started in 2005.
Okay.
I worked for a commercial architect, funnily enough, for the first, say, 3 years of my career, and slowly picking up residential jobs on the side. I think that's actually probably one of my strengths is that I wasn't trained by a residential architect. I think people who are sometimes can fall into the trap of designing a particular style or a particular way that they've been taught. Whereas I feel like one of my strengths is actually having developed my own style, I guess, because I wasn't taught, I had to learn myself. So it was probably quite a slower, longer period of learning. If I think back now to, say, the years between 2005 and 2015, I believe there would have been a lot of similar small-scale renovations and bits and pieces that were really my bread and butter at the time. I wasn't jumping straight into big, beautiful houses. But what I was doing, I was learning things like, say, the Gold Coast planning scheme and council's ways of doing things, all from the sort of, I suppose, smallest areas up to what we are today, which is dealing with, big planning permits and huge homes and budgets that now range up to 10 million plus for a build, which, thinking back to 2005 would have been just a dream back then. But it's all sort of hit as a reality now.
And where do you get your design inspiration from? Because that's definitely something unique about what you do, is people can tell a Jayson Pate design. Where do you get that inspiration from?
Yeah, it's crazy to think that because people come to me and say, we love what you do. And what I do, essentially, I believe, is actually try and draw out the inspiration from the client and essentially make it better or the best that it can be to what they've got in mind. A lot of the inspiration, I guess, sinks into the back of my, say, psyche from, say, Instagrams and things like that. Everything's so instant these days that, whether it's Instagram, whether it's, say, a magazine like The Local Project, but everything's so digital and everything's so in your face that I think just scrolling through whatever sort of pages we have, slowly bits and pieces just sink into your mind. And then when, say, problems occur or you're searching for that inspiration, somehow it bubbles back out and you know that, and you work with those things and soon enough you come up with the right solution, I guess.
You found it through the scroll and it all came together.
Pretty much, but it's not so much. I remember the days where it was, I'd come up with an issue on a set of plans that I couldn't solve, so I would then go to magazines, and this goes back a while, makes me sound old, go to magazines and flick through and try to find some more inspiration that might solve that problem. These days, it's sort of already in there, and whether that's back from those magazine days or now from the Instagram, sort of all, you see something that you love and somewhere it stores. When you're designing something else, out it comes, and the solutions come a whole lot easier these days.
Yeah, we've got everything accessible. Think back to your point, talking about Instagram, that's probably the standout point for your business and your career. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you've had great success because of that. Yeah. I mean, most of the clients that I sell for know you because of the renders that you have online and your social media presence. How has that helped you in business and the growth of your company?
Yeah, funnily enough, probably a decade ago, I was a little bit anti putting what I was designing out to the market early, and almost tried to hide my concepts and tried to hide my my ongoing projects until they were finished and really expose them to the world once it was a finished project with perfect photos. But what I found was I was almost a couple of years behind where I could be, because by the time a house was finished and furniture was moved in and professional photography was done, sometimes times had changed. Take the Hamptons explosion for an example. If you truly wanted to be the originator of Hamptons, if you waited 2 years down the line to start promoting the beautiful homes in the Hampton style that you did, you would have been well and truly behind everybody else in the game that was promoting their concepts. So I think I was just naive back when I was younger to think that hiding them away until they were finished to say, hey guys, look how amazing this is it's probably the wrong call. Nowadays, we finish concepts and we do preliminary working drawing. We kind of get it to a stage where we know the job's going to go ahead and then promote it to the market to say, hey, look how cool this is and look how different and new something might be. So people sort of pick it up and kind of run with the project, because a lot of our projects are sort of then, but, logs the whole project from, say, a site cleanup to, say, slabs going down to frames going up. The whole lot is now documented by the clients or by the builders. And so we kind of end up with this running timeline of projects. So from our concepts through the build stage, all of a sudden then through to final photos and videography. So some people will come along the journey for almost, 12 to 18 months, and if not some of the bigger builds, maybe even 2 years. I think through that process, some of these houses actually start to create a fame for themselves. I could name, say, the Palms. We all love the Palms. Jay from JSW, a good friend of mine these days. What he did almost put naming a home on the map.
Yes.
Everybody knows the house. It was, it went viral. For the years sort of after that home was finished, I would have had 100 clients bring me that as their inspo. So,
Wow.
but I think that's becoming the norm now, is that people know the homes that are being built on the Gold Coast. And if you're designing them, why not have them out there early and let people follow these sort of processes? And ultimately for my business, it's created this snowball that sort of started off quite small, but now is a bit of a juggernaut.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch the journey. I think a lot of people do document it too. And as somebody online, as you're scrolling, I feel like there's such a big buy-in from Gold Coast local communities. They love to see a house being created from the start to seeing what happens behind the scenes and then it being a finished product and coming to the open home or the auction, or, people are so involved on the Gold Coast in property because we've had such a shift in the way that it was going. These basic beach shacks, or what you said, brick and tile, and now we've got these magnificent homes that you've never seen anything like before.
Yeah, and I think you're right. The buy-in is huge, and I believe there's so much money to be made in property, and we all are looking for a way to get ahead. And I think, say, principal place of residence, no taxes to be paid on sale. There's not many better ways to make money, especially with a city with the population growth that we have. I think that's why people are jumping into that space as a really smart investment. We all need somewhere to live too. So it's kind of, it's just a smart move. It's created a groundswell of people who really are following along and wanting to know what the Joneses are doing. And as I say, that fame is sort of being created, not only for the homes themselves, but say the builders, the developers, there's something that is wanting to make people follow along and understand who these people are and what their next move is.
Yeah, so much power in that, because I think we watch these builders, we watch, like Knotwood or like a tap company. They have like hundreds of, 50,000 followers or whatever it may be. And you've got people that want to watch their content. It just seems bizarre, but it's like a behind the scenes of what happens in their business and how they create something from what they offer.
Absolutely. And I think, if you went back 10 or 15 years, what would you sort of suggest is the catalyst or the starting point of all of this? I'd almost say that it's, say, TV shows like The Block, or, a Renovation Rescue or Grand Designs. If you think back, some of those programs were quite small to start. The Block, if you look at it, is an absolute juggernaut now. So it's bringing that renovation or home building into people's lounge rooms.
Yeah.
And then sort of getting swept up in it and wanting more of it. And then you have, say, your look at ABI, what they've been able to do with their tapware.
It's amazing.
They've gone from a small little showroom in Burleigh to a ginormous warehouse in Mollendina that I hear they've already sort of almost grown out of, and they're just taking on the world. It's a real kind of hot space at the moment, especially on the Gold Coast, and it probably is to a lesser degree around Australia. The Gold Coast just seems like this bubble of activity.
Yeah, it's because we're so drawn to projects and creating things and watching it all evolve. We're so involved as like a community with it, which is it's pretty impressive.
Absolutely.
Do you think that your social media has, given you that platform to expand your business, or what would you, I guess, give the credit to for it?
Yeah, the social media has definitely been a big one because, say, the amount of inquiry has certainly risen off the back of the social media. Obviously, then it's just the quality of design, and I'll be the first one to put up my hand and say the quality of design has risen every year for the past, crazily enough, nearly 20 years. And so it should. As you grow and as you evolve, and so should your ideas. And clients' budgets have too, which is obviously the other key.
Fun to play with.
Yeah, absolutely. Our niche hitting zone would be these days probably about a $2 million to $4 million zone, and we'd probably do 60 projects of that per year. We do just over 100 a year, but then we'd have a couple of lower ones and quite a few higher budgets that are really starting to allow you to design some pretty crazy homes.
What are your favorite projects to work on and why?
Favourite projects, well, it's just prestigious residential design, and I get to do pretty much 100 of those a year. Would you say beachfront? Would you say riverfront, acreage? I love them all. And I think that's probably one of the keys to, say, my business is we're very much not pigeonholed to any particular design style or particular location. And I think that's always been a bit of a key driver for me to make the industry understand is that whether it's a 5-level home on the beachfront, whether it's a monstrous place on the main river, or whether it's just a beautiful sprawling single story out in acreage, we can take them all on, and no matter what their style, we can do them well.
Yeah, and I love that about your brand and what you've created, because we were speaking about this off camera. Using your name when you're selling a property is like gold.
Yeah.
Like we have one in Mermaid Waters at the moment. We just mentioned that Jayson Pate was behind the designs and people flock to it. So it's very impressive. How did you create that brand?
It's quite humbling to hear it because it's not something that you set out to do, but obviously it happening is great. How did I achieve that? I guess it's probably the sheer volume is a big one, a big part in my business. That's creating processes and streamlined sort of ways to do things, because we're only a team of, say, 7 at the moment, including my wife, who's sort of accounts and behind the scenes. But myself and 5 designers, sort of doing over 100 projects a year. It's quite fast paced, but having that volume go out to the market, and obviously then people start to know the brand, and that brand recognition plays a big part. And then obviously the quality of design has to be at a level of all of those designs before it starts to get dragged down by something that's not up to spec. So I think it's just it's something that's just evolved over time. But I do believe that the volume of work that comes out of the office has a big part to play.
For sure. It's going back to that old time in the game saying, like, it is just time in the game.
Yeah.
And as long as you're evolving with that and bringing better products every time,
Yeah.
you'll do well in business.
Yeah, and that's, you start to think of how many projects we've done. The portfolio is huge.
Do you know how many projects you've done?
It'd be interesting to count them up, but I think it would be well and truly over 1,000 these days, because for the last 5 or 6, we've broken 100 every year. So
Wow.
it could possibly be up towards 12 or 1,500. To think of something like that, there's not many streets on the coast that we haven't done a project on or done something nearby, which makes it quite easy to get around the coast now, because I essentially know where streets are because we've designed on most of them.
Yeah, that's a great little map tool that you've got there. And can you say there's any hotspots that you've found have had the most growth in the development side of things? Obviously, you're working in little pockets, but where have you found have been, the most developed recently?
We work from pretty much Paradise Waters down to Cabarita as probably our core areas, all the way down the coastline. I've been a big advocate for Broadbeach Waters all my life. I bought a property there in 2010 that served me very well. So I've always been Broadbeach, Mermaid, have always been a real hotspot for me and my business. Obviously, in the past few years, Burleigh down to Palm Beach, they're the hottest of hot sort of development precincts for that prestige residential space currently. But we're doing Paradise Waters, we do a lot in Kingscliff, starting to run out a little bit of the beachfront land now, but for the last 10 years, we've been doing a lot of sort of high quality work down there and down into Cabarita. But we've actually got we've got projects on in Perth at the moment, in Adelaide at the moment, and in Melbourne.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So Australia-wide.
So it is starting to become Australia-wide. As much as we sort of heading that way, I still firmly focus on the Gold Coast and wider regions. We're starting to do a little bit in Brisbane, and obviously that northern New South Wales has always been a hotspot for us. But I try to keep a lid on things a bit as well. All new projects in new locations become new councils to deal with, new rule books. They can get a little bit clunky at times. So we've got to be careful to, not to say bottleneck our workflow by dealing with something that we don't know well enough.
Yeah, it's good to have a good relationship with the council and know how to work with them, not against them.
And I think majority of councils do work with you, especially for high quality design. And I think that's what all councils should be trying to achieve, is just not allowing poor quality anything in their cities. I think the Gold Coast is one of the best councils it is the best council we work with. And I'm a big advocate for Tom Tate and what he's done in his time. It's allowed my business to flourish because we're so pro-development here on the coast. I'd be a liar if I said that wasn't a good thing. And I think the city, if you took a snapshot of his last 8 years, the city's come a long, long way.
Yeah, to have some phenomenal growth because of him.
Absolutely.
We love him being in council with duplexes, corner blocks, redevelopment.
All of it.
I'm like, thank you.
Absolutely. Imagine that we weren't doing these infill sites and we weren't allowing density to sort of increase. Where do people go? Everyone's moving here. We do need these. And yes, we need to keep a lid on it to some degree. But I think we've got a good balance for it at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't feel like we're living on top of each other yet.
No.
And compared to Brisbane, the way that their zoning is, and, some of their blocks are like 300 square metres.
Yeah.
Even 405 is quite unique on the Gold Coast. Like there's not a lot of suburbs that have that except for, Mermaid Beach and Palmy.
Yeah.
But we're pretty blessed that most sites are, 6 to 900.
Yeah, and our town plan does protect majority of our, say, low density sites. Some can be subdivided, but not a lot. And the ones that are sort of few and far between enough to not feel like everything's being cut up into smaller parcels.
So true. Would you give any tips to people that are looking to build, like key things that they should either look out for or make sure that they implement into their floor plans or their designs?
I think the key to buying early, take two parts to the question. Say buying, aspect and location are everything. So obviously know where you want to live, what suburbs suit you and what you want to be close to, but then the aspect of the site. I'm a huge north to water person.
I am too. I love
and most
north.
of the people who know what they're talking on the coast, it's north, northeast, northwest, anything with north, we're pretty happy. East and west both have their sort of pros and cons. I still love a west to water block, beautiful sunshine in the afternoon, pool by the water, great entertainers home. East to water generally means beautiful city views. Can get a little bit cool with the southeasterlies in the afternoon, shaded by, say, a double-storey home. South to water, I start to get a little bit sort of hesitant when buyers come to me saying, hey, I've found a block, I want to build my dream home south to water. There's compromises to it, but generally a price point is better. So I'd say to buyers, understand, say, our climate and what comes with aspect. But then from the design point of view, understand your budget. Budget's so important. And we pretty much work backwards from budget rather than working forwards, say, from a client's brief. Because if a client comes to us with a brief of, say, let's just call it 8 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, no use designing an 8-bedroom, 8-bathroom home if then we find out the client's budget's $1.5 million. It's just not going to happen. So essentially understanding your budget, understanding what you wish for, but whether you can actually get those And do you actually need to buy a cheaper site to have a bigger home? Do you buy a trophy site because you're happy to have a smaller home on a beautiful block? Those are the sort of things that people need to understand pre-purchase, really. So a bit of education, right from, hey, we're moving to the Gold Coast, or we want to change where we live. I think that's the key.
So true, and great points about the aspect, because we have a lot of clients that we sell for, and they'll give us a recent sale potentially that's, you know, facing south or facing north, and wondering why theirs isn't comparative. But it's so true, the difference in pricing, because it affects the lifestyle that you want to have.
Yeah.
And again, having a good architect to make sure that you can compromise on those things, but also enhance the way that the property faces, so that you don't have to deal with, you know, potential issues.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest keys to the whole thing is essentially engaging somebody who understands those numbers. Because I do believe one of the biggest flaws of our industry is designing someone a home they can't afford, expecting them to be able to go out the back and pull some more money off the money tree. It's just not, especially in today's climate with construction costs so high. We're not missing budgets by 10%. You're missing budget, or some of these people are missing budgets by 50 or 100%.
Wow.
Now, what good does that, what good is it to anybody? Not much.
Can I ask, since obviously the increase in the building cost, have you seen a pullback in the amount of designs that you've been doing?
We haven't. It's crazily enough, is it a growing business in a really sort of hot industry? Maybe. Is it the population growth and just so much work to go around? Maybe. I have heard some people are starting to slow a little bit, but we haven't seen any drop in inquiry whatsoever.
Yeah. And again, I think that all comes back to your, your branding, because you have such a presence on the coast, and that helps people to not forget.
Yeah, and I think it's that longevity of a business. It's, a lucky position to have been around long enough for the brand awareness to be out there now. And we seem to be held within the sort of top few designer architects up here on the coast at the moment.
How do you manage your personal life and business when you've expanded so much and you've got all these employees doing over 100 a year?
It's hard, I'll tell you that. And I've got 2 young children at home. I've got a 2.5-year-old and a 6-month-old at home. So trying to find that balance between a business life and a growing business, but then obviously spending enough time at home and seeing my girls grow up is so important to me. But then also finding enough time for me to have a bit of a break from all of it. It's just a real balance. I think the biggest change in my life is probably when I was young. We probably socialised a whole lot more and had nights out, and whether it was drinking or partying. I can't remember the last time I went out and did all that sort of stuff. So something has to give in my life. The sort of socialising part's probably the thing that has given, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. And when you said, I think a key thing you said there, like giving back to your clients, your family, but to you as well.
Yeah.
Is there any specific habits that you have for you to keep you 100%?
Yeah, mine's a game of golf.
Okay.
Just a game of golf.
That fits in your new Porsche.
Pretty much.
Noted.
Have to have the golf clubs in the car. But yeah, it's that time away from everything. That's I call it Zen. So some people will go for a surf. Some people will go to the gym, which I'll still try to do as well. But it's trying to find that time where you can zone out and not think about work, and have a little bit of time where it's not, whether it's screaming kids or whatever it might be. But we seem to have quite a good balance in our lives at the moment, which is lovely.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. Just while we wrap up, a few tips for the listeners, or maybe, a key quote that served you in business over the last few years. Is there anything that you could share with people that are listening?
Key quote. That's an interesting one. I don't live by a lot of them, to be honest. I think it'd be more just something to do with the advice of buying or understanding, what you're trying to achieve. But no real key quote, I don't think.
Okay, have a big picture in mind.
Yeah, just understand
your
ultimate goal, I guess, and probably getting a team around you that can really help get you there with quality advice, because with the wrong team around you, you're probably not going to get anywhere near where you hope to get.
So true. In business, just buying property and building.
Yeah.
You need a good team.
And I think there's no easy way, especially in business. There's no quick money to be made. I think you need a long game to have the long game in mind. And if you do and stick to your values, I think it all will grow. And I guess
Compounding.
that's what I've always set out to achieve in business, not so much to grow, but to do good things for good people. And I do believe it all comes back. And 20 years on, the referral sort of base of my business is huge. I'd have clients who I'd be doing their 6th or 8th home for. They're always coming back. Developers would be, their 20th project. I don't seem to lose many clients because I do believe we go over and above for them. So I think anyone starting out, it's to make sure that people understand they're getting great value for money and that you are going over and above what you've set out to kind of do for them. People will appreciate it, and in turn, they will either come back or refer friends.
Love that. Be a good human and good stuff will happen to you.
It does. The whole karma thing.
Amazing. Well, thank you for your time, Jayson. It was so nice to
problems.
chat with you.
Thanks for having me.